we did receive a comment from, regarding, I think it was regarding the Inland Island project, from, who's commented previously, asked, indicating that, he had a conversation with you and he wanted, his comment was, he looks forward for hearing more about, that conversation. It was a criticism of, the development team. Okay, I can't remember the name right now, it's down my head.
Thank you. And then review of our previous month's meeting minutes as we move those. Next item by Cheyenne, any discussion on these? Seeing none, all those in favor of adoption? And that carries unanimously, thank you. All right, so first item we have here is a pilot resolution for the benefit of Cinemapolis, by Kate, and then may I have someone summarize and move this resolution, please?
Sure, at the Economic Development Committee meeting, we had discussed amending Cinemapolis's lease agreement such that, and please correct me if I'm wrong, because I know that the structure is slightly complicated, such that Cinemapolis would no longer be responsible for the property taxes. That would be transferred responsibility to the Sterry Parking, so that the county's IDA can then grant the pilot agreement so that we are no longer bearing that burden for the property taxes. And we discussed this at the committee meeting and decided that we were in favor of making that amendment.
Great, thank you. May I have a second? Second by Dawn. Any comments, questions, discussions, or Kate, you have anything you'd like to share?
Sean did a good job of explaining that, so I think I'm happy with that.
Seeing no comments or questions, all those in favor? And that carries 4-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Turning to item B, community development lending.
Green Star?
Yes, thank you. May I have someone summarize the moves, please?
I'm willing.
Done, thank you.
So Green Star originally got a loan for job retention. And then the circumstances of the business changed, largely because the job, no, I'm sorry. They originally got a loan for job creation. And then the circumstances of the business changed, due largely to COVID, we change in, deli and carry out food businesses and so on. And it's, so now they're requesting that we change the use of the loan to a job retention loan. And they have documented, that they, let's see, where's the number of, they've documented that they are retaining, many of their workers. There's a whole chart about this. And Nels explained that changing the terms of the loan is not very complicated, and it doesn't require renegotiation of a whole lot of stuff. So it seemed very reasonable to the Economic Development Committee.
Thank you very much. Is there a second? Second by Sean. Any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor? And carries 4-0. And then may I have someone please do the similar resolution for the Ithaca Coffee Company? Cheyenne. I'm sorry, Siobhan.
Yeah, so the Ithaca Coffee Company is seeking a $100,000 loan from the IRA to renovate their space at 702 Hancock Street to allow for a retail espresso bar space. They currently use the facility for roasting and baking some of their items, and they're seeking to close their location at Triphammer and move their retail space into this 702 Hancock building, citing some of the increased costs and issues that they've been facing at the Trip Hammer location. And so we had discussed it and looked over their proposal and have discussed that they're going to be opening a development across the street from where this building is located, and hoping that that will increase foot traffic there and offer them the sort of clients that they're looking for, and we were in support of this.
Thank you very much. There's a second. Second by Don, and then Cheyenne, your comment.
Yeah, how much is it?
$100,000.
I don't know, I'm not as aware of, as I'm sure other community members are. Does that seem like a lot?
Most of our loans that, recent loans that have been for retail businesses have been between $75,000 and $150,000. So this is not unusually high for a project that requires construction, renovation and equipment purchase.
And how many jobs is it for Cass?
This is for 3 full-time equivalent jobs.
And how many jobs are they losing from Trip Hammer?
Don't know that exact number. I mean, that they've already announced they're closing there, so this would not, you know, we don't make the loan, those jobs are not retained. Some of the employees from Trip Hammer will come down to this location, is what we've been told. So it's retaining some jobs that would otherwise be lost. So this is a mix of job creation and job retention, because we have to count the full picture and realize that financially, the financial documents showed that the Trip Hammer operation had lost money in the last 3 years and was not sustainable to continue. They had stable revenue, but they had increasing costs, and it wasn't financially feasible to continue on that track without some changes. The ownership had tried a variety of different things in terms of focusing on a tavern activity at the back and a coffee operation and a specialty food. That did require a heavier staffing pattern, which may have contributed to some of their increased costs. So by bringing the business down to the city at a building they already own, they can reduce costs and operate with lower overhead.
Is it common to have $100,000 for a 3-employee operation? Is that like a normal scale?
It depends. That is the standard we have is $35,000 per job created or retained as a public benefit test.
Okay. And what's I forget, I'm sorry, this is also just a fact question, but what's the interest rate for these loans?
It's 75% of the prime rate, so it started at 5.6% and it'd be an 8-year term.
Okay.
So the documentation says will retain 2 FTE and create 1 FE. Combination of 3. But there are people already working, right?
Right, that's not counting the ones who are currently at the coffee roasting operation or the wine biscuit bakery component that they have.
All those in favor of the resolution as moved? Thank you. Thank you. Next, we'll turn to the Inland Island Urban Renewal Project. We have a resolution to terminate exclusive negotiation agreement with Finger Lakes Development LLC. This was tabled at our December meeting after some substantial debate to give 30 days to the team to be able to provide an update on the feasibility of the project. So I guess since I just summarized that, I'll kind of move it. There a second, we'll read discussion. Second by Cheyenne. And then I'll turn the floor over to our guests.
Okay.
You just need to
Oh, sorry. Turn it on too. So yes, good morning. My name is Steve Flash, and Neil Patel and Jeffrey Rimland are both here. Neil is with Baywood Hotels, and Jeffrey is the better part of Finger Lakes Development. So in any event, since we last met, we've made a lot of progress. I'm pleased to say that with Baywood Hotels, we have at this point say handshake, but it's an MOU. We have a good understanding. We've met with how we can proceed together in a joint venture. And they have the capacity and they've demonstrated capacity here in Ithaca to, with the construction of the Canopy Hotel and two other hotels in the area, to work through the process. They've worked with the IURA before. And the other aspect of them, which makes them particularly attractive, which I think you should know about, is that they are a vertically designed company, so that they can, creates a lot of efficiency, which gets us to financial ability to go forward, because they can self-perform a lot of the aspects of the hotel construction and then also management. So they're on both sides, which is a very efficient structure. And so with that in mind, they've been able to figure out a redesign that takes into consideration the required increase in elevation due to the flood map changes to a 4-story building. We have acquired the soil borings. We've been working with INHS and with them, we have their soil borings. Obviously, we're going to have to do our own when it comes time to construction, but that gives us enough accuracy in combination with other soil borings that we've obtained from another project in the area. Gives us enough confidence to go forward with the engineering of a foundation that can sustain this building. It is different than originally designed, so while it's got a similar footprint, it has to be elevated, as I said, and it's only 4 stories, so it's somewhat lighter, and we may be able and lower the spread just a little bit further, so that have to go into consideration in developing the engineering for it. We have confirmed that INHS still is engaged. And as I said, we've worked with them to get the soil borings and to try to understand their program. And the other advantage is with Baywood is that they have in-house the underwriting capacity, so it gives us some financial security going forward. And project management, as well as some pre-construction cost estimating in-house. So that makes things a lot more efficient. We've identified a manager for the environmental cleanup that's going to have to happen, and are now going through the cost benefit analysis for that aspect, and you know, how we want to do the cleanup. And we have reviewed the meeting schedule that we had developed previously with planning, and if given the opportunity, would like to start that, restart that, I guess I should say, in March, with a kind of basically a redeveloped conceptual site plan. If we can do that, then we can bring it in with really no delay. That won't delay the INHS project, and we can meet and with an accelerated schedule if you know we can make that work for the city and the planning process. Then I think we can make this happen. We're going to need your support and understanding that this is a difficult, you know, it's you know, it's not an easy task, but we think this team can do it.
I'll just turn to Jeff and Neil. Anything you want to add to that? You yourself, no, sorry.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hi, guys. This is Neil Patel with Baywood. So we came on board about a month ago, and we've been trying to fast track as much as possible. We understand that it is time sensitive, but we do have the expertise, the wherewithal to handle this project, at least on the hotel side and the development side. But you know, we there are some things that we still have to uncover on the site improvement side. We have an understanding of conceptually what we want to do with the hotel. We have a footprint, we have a concept, we have guest room layouts, we have program space that we know would work. It's just now we're going to start spending dollars on getting ideas for what the cost estimate would be for the site work itself. And raising the actual site. We were able to bring the site, the project down from 5 stories to 4 stories and change the construction type to lower the loads. But yeah, we feel comfortable. We feel confident in a project here. We know that you know, if it's not going to open for another 3 years from now, but if we start now and go through the steps, we've been through this process before. We feel comfortable taking it on.
Anything staff want to add before I turn it over to agency members? Any comments or questions from colleagues? Diane?
No, I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but I know you just said no comment, but I would like to know your opinion.
Okay, yeah, my sense is that if we think there's a better than 50% chance that this is going to proceed, that it makes sense to provide some sort of time extension. But I think that time extension should be somewhat provided with incentives to the developer to continue on and meet the obligations or goals that they're mentioning. And one way to potentially do that is to have some sort of a time extension fee that is a refundable upon closing of the property. If we want to keep kind of the incentives in place, we could provide something along those lines that we know now that it's not fully documented as feasible, but it's moving in that direction. So there would need to be more time. I'm sensing from understanding that, and one way to keep kind of prove the commitment is there is to say, if you want more time, there's going to have to be some sort of a deposit put down that's non-refundable for the purchase as you buy more time. If we do need to get to an actual signed disposition and development agreement, we don't have that in place now. That would be the next major step beyond not terminating the exclusive negotiation agreement. It does take a lot of staff time and effort to go through an entire RFP process. And I think, you know, one important point to keep in mind is, are you comfortable with the overall scope of the project as defined? The IURA several years ago went through a pretty intensive effort to try to figure out, is this project meets its goals for public benefit? And a lot of that was related to the affordable housing piece, as well as trying to enhance the public's experience along the waterfront, because we built that bulkhead wall along the waterfront edge, but we never really activated that along the flood control channel. It's really more of a parking lot with a couple of fishing spots than anything else right now. People walk and run on it and walk on the way to the restaurant at the end, but there's not, otherwise it's not really fulfilling its potential, I think. So the question is, does this project kind of help us get that point? Definitely, we have a city-owned property that has a brownfield on it that at some point needs to be cleaned up, and this project would get us to that end. And it would convert what is a large surface parking lot to affordable housing and a hotel, as well as providing for boat launch, put in and takeout operations. The development team would move away from storing boats on the project. They really have already largely done that during most of the year. At one time, that was pretty much the predominant use on the island. So this is another kind of making it more of a asset to the community for use on the island. So I think if you think that there's a better than 50% chance of it going forward and being feasible, I would recommend some sort of extension here. And as we go further along, if we can't document that it's going to be feasible and the developer is not committing to pretty extensive investments in the process, then we should explore some sort of a non-refundable time extension that, you know, should it go to closing, that money is applied to that closing, but if it doesn't go to closing, somehow the IRA is being compensated for this time extension. But at this point, I think we need probably 30 more days to figure out where it's at, if it's feasible, from what I'm understanding.
Please.
Can one of you tell us exactly what you would do with 30 more days?
So, what we would propose is a meeting, the preliminary planning meeting with the planning department, as an informal process to start the project, set up the timeline, in March. So it'd actually be a little more than 30 days, might be end of January, because we come a long way in the last 30 days, but putting together the rest of the plans and the conceptual plan, we need the time then, and at that point, if it is positively approved of by the city, and the city, there are requirements the city is also going to have to commit to in order to make this work, then we'll have a calendar and you'll know what it is. And so, but I think a meeting the planning department in March is what we were shooting for. I mean, I don't know. You're not in the position to approve conceptual plans. I don't think. It seems to me we have to go through the planning department first. So that's what we would, I guess, propose.
Yeah,
I see.
unless you have a question.
No.
Just to clarify that process you're talking about is the site plan and seeker review process. So it's just get through that approval process. I do think that this board could take a look at the conceptual plan to make sure that it's consistent with its original vision for the island, because we don't know how the hotel is being redesigned and the footprint is changing. So I think that conceptual site plan is probably something appropriate for the area to take a look at. And that might be a point where there's a decision being made as well. Like, does this meet the original intent? Like, from what I hear, it's trying to track the original vision as much as possible, but we don't really know exactly how it's changing. And there were some, to be fair, there was some criticism of the original site plan change as it relates to transportation and parking. So that really is a planning board decision, but the main things I think I'm referencing is, just does it activate the public waterfront area sufficiently? How does that hotel fit in with that public area along the waterfront? And of course, retention of the affordable housing component.
I just wanted to say that those things could happen concurrently. We could come back with a conceptual site plan and a proposed, schedule. We could provide that. Commit us to anything, a proposed schedule.
Done.
So at what point would we see a transportation? It seems like that's a huge concern to me because of the problem that could take there.
That would be part of the site plan and seeker review
Yeah,
process.
seeker review. In fact, that would be. We can provide guidance at any time about what would need to be in the scope of the transportation.
The expectation or the prior discussion was there would be a consultant hired to help analyze and look at the transportation issues. Because, Cannon Boulevard is a state highway, so that's potentially impacted by the project.
So just to clarify, we have, from what I'm hearing, like our next meeting would be at the end of February. So are we looking just for an update at the end of February? And then at the end of March, there would be the expectation we would have something more substantial at that meeting? Or?
It's a good question for the development team as well.
Yeah, I mean, Jeffrey and Neil speak about, obviously, we haven't communicated about it, but it would seem to me we need to be able to have some kind of give and take conversation. Which is kind of difficult when you're expecting the progress. You know, this will work, that will work, this is what we need from the city, can you do this, can you do that, you know? Can we do that, whatever it is, regarding the issues that are gonna come up, be they traffic, parking, seeker, you know, design, all, you know, improvements, design, that sort of thing. It's hard to kind of discuss those and develop the conceptual plan in a meeting when you just, when you want, well, okay, what's your progress in getting forward? I mean, we can show our plans, but then there'll be some, you're gonna want to comment, we're gonna need to be able to respond, okay, well, we can change this, or we can change that. If you want to do that in these meetings, that I guess is fine.
I think I was just asking, I mean, I'm not personally in any position to review any of the details of the proposal. I just think, I was just wondering about just coming to say these are the things that we have been working on, just because I know that staff time was put in with less outcome than what we wanted over the, you know, last 6 months of 2024. So I mean, I gather from the three of you that are here that you are really committed to this in a way that may be different than it was before. But I was just wondering if that's what we are asking for. It's just sort of like a very, you know, a brief summary update in a month, not for review exactly, but just that there's steady progress. I don't know if that's what other people are interested in or are asking for.
I'll ask like the more pointed version of what Nels made reference to before. Is there a better than 50% chance this is going forward?
I think so.
Okay.
If we have your support.
Well, that, like you said,
He's not gonna say no in public.
well, so the follow-up to that is, you know, I like Nels's idea about, if there's further time needed you know, the idea was just floated today. But if the agency grants more time and more time is needed, I think, preliminary commitment to the idea of providing a non-refundable deposit is something that would help me make a decision.
Can I make a comment?
Please.
In the last 3 years, Steve and I have spent several $100,000 in consulting fees, engineering fees, architectural fees to get to this point. And in the last 6 months, we learned that the floodplain map changed, and all of that effort was really for naught, because the building at that point became unbuildable and the project became unfinanceable. Through Nels's effort, he introduced us to Neil Patel from Baywood, and he literally resurrected the project, because with Neil's expertise, he was able to bring to the table a new vision, a new design that basically starts us off at a beginning. Now, the resources that Steve and I have already expended on the property are gone. And now we have to take out the checkbook again and redesign, re-engineer. And I think that in itself is enough of a commitment from my point of view to show that we're serious about bringing this project forward. And placing a penalty or another non-refundable only hinders the project, because I'm not really personally willing to go beyond what we've already committed between the three of us. And we're going to need the support of the city, because this is a complicated project. This is not going to be easy. And we are on the borderline of making this feasible. There really isn't a lot of room here. So all the things that we need to uncover, all the, we're going to have to work to bring the foundation in as, as innovatively least expensive as possible. and using any kind of new technologies to get this project over the finish line. And we're going to need to be comfortable that the city and the IURA is on our side and is going to be our partner. And we'll be a good partner with the city, but we need to know that the city is going to be a good partner to us, to give us the confidence to now expend another several $100,000 to get it to a point where we can sit down and have a real project. And I mean, I appreciate the restart. We are certainly financially capable to get this project finished, but we need to know that we have a good partner in the city, because it's been 4 years and it has not been easy. And this project should have been built 4 or 5 years ago, and it hasn't. So
I appreciate that perspective. I think I'll just elaborate a little bit on our December meeting, since you didn't have the opportunity to join us for that. We, on the IURA agency side, had some serious concerns about the lack of communication with the viability of previous instantiation of this project. And so I applaud agency staff connecting the development team to a viable alternative. But my understanding is it went several months without any understanding that the project was not moving forward in a substantial way. And so I definitely agree with you that we need to make sure we have confidence in partnership, and that goes 2 ways. And that's what I'm trying to get at here with these questions. So I'm hearing you that you're unwilling to contemplate the deposit thing. That's a helpful data point for me. Again, not sure if you had a chance to review the previous meeting. I was pretty skeptical about providing any extension, and I'm still leaning that way.
well, that's your prerogative. The city does not have to give us any extensions. We don't have to go forward, and you can start all over. That's your prerogative. It's your property. We, on our side, were left with a dilemma, and the non-communication was because we didn't have a project. And for the last 4 months, as Nels is aware, we were looking for additional partners that could resurrect the project, because we didn't have a project. The way we saw it, was that the project was unfinanceable. And I'm glad that Neil is sitting at the table now. We see it as a real project again. It's a smaller project. It's a slightly different, but it's now potentially financeable. We've been diligent on this property now for over 10 years. And it has been so much back and forth between the Coast Guard. I mean, this, as Lisa knows, this project goes back at least 10 years. And again, it's your property, your prerogative. You guys do what you want. We can bring this project in, and if we start over, the project's just going to be further delayed.
One important data point, I think, is what Neil referred to as, he's done some internal work and cost estimating and redesign of the hotel, but Neil did reference that there's still an open question on the site work as part of the financial feasibility. I don't know how much time, Neil, you think you would need to get a better handle on that question, because it sounds like that could be another financial issue, that would be instrumental in determining financial feasibility of the project. Or do you think you'll have enough information at this point? Because there's that snapshot in time, I guess, of once that information is known, then we could look at, the submission of a conceptual plan, which would require an investment on the development team to get to that point. And then finally, the third one is a complete application to the planning board, which is where we were kind of before. We were trying to figure out the time schedule for a complete application, which would require a number of studies as well to get to that point. So those are
all these answers require tens of thousands of dollars per consultant. And our penalty is that we've already lost everything that we've already put forth in this property, and now we're starting all over with another several $100,000. That's, to me, it's enough of a penalty.
So this is, yeah, this is a real quandary. And I kind of have regrets about how this was handled all along for several years before, but if, I think I'll need Nels and Lisa to weigh in on this. If we withdrew the agreement now, I think the process would be that common council would have to start all over again, setting specifications for an RFP. And then other developers would weigh in. And then doesn't it seem like, it seems likely that the current common council or some instantiation of it would also want to have some kind of tourism element and some kind of affordable housing element, in which case it seems like whatever developer was selected would have the same problems. So is my intuition right about that? The only alternative would be if it went to, if the city decided, which I think is not crazy, not to have big buildings on a small, sensitive piece of land on the water. I think we've learned watching, I mean, it just seemed, I think we've learned that that's just not a good idea. But anyway, so my point was, the only case in which these problems would just come up all over again for another developer, unless the city changed the constraints and the criteria for development. Is my understanding correct on that?
Yeah, I think that a project that included these elements would face similar issues in terms of the development plan. And I also think that if we terminated this agreement, we would probably need to go back to common council and get a framework for issuing a new RFP, because at the end of the day, the common council has to approve the proposed disposition. So you don't want to go too far down the road without some assurance that we're moving in the correct direction, that we get support from common council.
I'll just note though, and then I'll repeat Shimon, you know, I think what Donna, you raise is all valid, but common council will then be considering the possibility of recessing that framework with all of the information of what's happened in the interim. And I think, you know, I'm not sure if I'll sort of preamble a little bit more to give Alderperson Nguyen an opportunity to know that I'm gonna call on him. But, you know, I certainly don't expect him to be able to speak for the entire body, but he is the liaison for common council. And I think getting a sense of where council's thoughts might be at the nexus of like the desirable and the achievable would be helpful. So Alderperson, do you have any comments?
It's hard to say. We have, it's a brand new council still, even a year in. I will say though that we, Tom, Don and I, as a body, swung for the fences with the stereo. I know that there are problems with it, but you know, we said, Green Street Garage. So we asked for a lot. And frankly, it seemed ridiculous to ask for a new garage, conference center, and affordable housing in one project, and we achieved it. We as an entire community. So I do think there is appetite to kind of swing for the fences. But yeah, with the new council, it's hard for me to say, but we are ambitious, we regularly asked by constituents to leverage a city-owned property to benefit the community in the strongest way as possible. So yeah, taking into account your concerns, I still think we would have aggressive expectations. I don't have anything developed this year.
Sure.
Yeah, I have a couple of comments. One in relation to what Donna was talking about, which is, it seems to me like the part of the priority of this project originally was the public access and waterfront recreation aspect of utilizing this land. And so much of this conversation is now being centered around the viability of this hotel and tourism aspect. And it seems like the original intention of the project is sort of getting pushed to the wayside as we are sort of being hampered by the hotel piece. And I do wonder if there's a way to redesign the project that the public access piece is more at the forefront of how we're moving forward with the project. My other comment is that we have an exclusive negotiation agreement with Finger Lakes Development, with the understanding that they were going to be the ones who were developing this tourism project. And at this point in time, they've brought another developer on board who is now developing the hotel. And I'm sort of struggling with the fact that we are maintaining an exclusive agreement with the developer who's no longer really the primary developer of the hotel. And so I'm sort of struggling to understand at this point as well, the real role that Finger Lakes Development is even playing in this project. And if we were to reopen it for an RFP, perhaps that would be an opportunity for Baywood then to present their own sort of proposal for the project. But yeah, I'm struggling with us having an agreement with one developer who is no longer able to substantiate the project on that.
Sure. I think maybe we
Okay.
can respond to that comment about the relationship between Finger Lakes Development and the hotel.
Sure. Finger Lakes Development, Jeffrey and I, are still directly involved. We would have to, whether or not it was Baywood or someone else, we would still have to go to somebody else to manage the hotel. We would still have to go to somebody else to do the construction. And we would still have to go to somebody else to do the management of the hotel. Hotel was always part of the aspect of Finger Lake Development and this project. To activate the water line, the waterfront and so on and so forth. And so that hasn't changed, and nor is our involvement. What this does is provide an efficiency to make it financially feasible. Rather than going to somebody else by going for multiple different, a manager, a contractor, and so on and so forth, and a different, financing vehicle. Now it's all contained in one, and we're still partners with that one. It's not really any different as far as our involvement. Internally, there is. I mean, Jeffrey and I are still involved. We will be through the end of it if it is a project that you actually want. So I don't think that aspect is, I don't know if I can give you any other comfort other than to say, I'm not a contractor.
Finger Lakes will still be the developer.
Right, of record.
Baywood would be an investor within Finger Lakes. So, so on the surface, nothing has changed.
Also follow up on a question,
Can't hear.
maybe I misunderstood, but when I think of like public access, I think of the role of the developer and literally making it like a place that the public would go besides it being a parking lot, right? Like this is a very minimal word to use, but like the making it a place where people would go in addition to the fact that there is a hotel there, like where you could walk around and on it or in the area, right? Park. Right, like a park. I just mean, I don't want to minimize it by calling it landscaping. It's not landscaping, but it's and not that landscaping is a minimal task, but you know what I mean? Like that is the partnership of making it like a functioning space, plus having a hotel and 55 units, right, for the Beacon. I really don't want us to keep forgetting that as we are having these back and forth, snippy back and forth. We have 55 affordable units on the hook as well, right?
it might be helpful for Steve to elaborate a little bit on the public improvements, because essentially the hotel is contributing to making making the developer able to make improvements on public property. Without the hotel component, financially, it doesn't work out to do the project and provide the public benefits. So maybe it'd be helpful to talk a little bit about what was part of the site plan, the conceptual plan for waterfront access, boating access that was part of that plan. And INHS is also going to do part of that public improvements outside of their properties, as I understand it. Or there was going to be essentially carved out development sites and then public access area outside of those development areas along the waterfront.
And Nels, are they aware, is IURA aware of the extent of the cleanup that's required here? And now that the floodplain is been elevated, that we've got to not only go down maybe 7 to 9 feet, remove all of that soil and then replace it and elevate the entire site above the floodplain?
Yeah, we've talked about the cleanup cost, that there is a half acre of pretty heavily contaminated soil contamination that needs to be remediated as part of the project, and that's on city-owned property.
Yeah, so, and to get to the benefits, right now, you already have a 20-foot wide, 20-foot wide promenade going all the way around the island. So we are enhancing the access to that. Right now, that is surrounding a contaminated site, which is not particularly attractive. And so by doing the environmental cleanup, by having a hotel, by having housing, you have some more livelihood that can actually use that waterfront walkway, circulation patterns, and allow the existing businesses to continue to exist and thrive. If you want a park, then tell us now. Because there's not space to create a park and have parking for businesses to be able to survive and have parking for the public to be able to access and, do this, that, and the other thing. It's not a big space. You've got Cass Park right across the way, and this continues that whole loop and attaches to Cass Park as well as to the waterfront walkway. And if you don't want a hotel there, if you don't want businesses there, that's fine. If you want a park, but tell us now, because what we've invested in over the last 20 years is trying to make this a vibrant place with a lot of activity, and a lot of people, brings people down there. The hotel, and Neil can talk to about what they have going on inside as far as having people come down and use that. And also being complementary to the boating facility. Yes, then would also be able to, access the boats down there. There's a full walkway around to keep people away from the marine operations safely, but yet still be able to go around the island. And attach onto the walkway that goes all the way up to the farmers market and all the way out to Trumansburg.
That's what I was thinking. I think we were, I don't want to speak for Donna, but I didn't mean a park. I meant to sort of like the accessible space, yeah.
Right, but I want to be clear that the conceptual plan did include public elements such as a kayak, access to a kayak location or two of them. And improvements to that experience. It's not all privately developed site. There is public access areas, even though the island is somewhat narrow, there are enhanced areas there. And so that I think is an important element to maintain in the project, I guess, as I'm saying. Not more than what was in the conceptual plan that was provided, but not losing that either without trade-offs.
I didn't.
All right, yeah. Yeah. I want to suggest that there may be a way to demonstrate more commitment to make the board feel comfortable without spending a lot of money. I think that's your issue, right? Like, so we talked about having we could make a site plan review schedule. And you come back with that, but I wonder about the feasibility at this point of engaging a design team to do a very, it doesn't have to be complex, but do the analysis to do a conceptual plan that addresses some of the issues that were brought up to the team repeatedly with the original design. So come back with a sketch plan that starts to communicate with that issue. And, that shouldn't cost, it certainly doesn't cost as much as doing a full-blown design with a schedule. Could something like that, is that feasible to demonstrate?
I think we could do that.
Yeah.
And that's what we were proposing to have to you in that March planning and staff meeting.
Could it be sooner?
I would ask Neil and Jeffrey if we can do it sooner. What we talked
Yeah.
about was proposing.
I mean, that's
March.
30 days. We're already into February.
Well, we've been talking about, the issue is that we've been talking about these things for years and so assuming there's some there, you've been thinking about them. A actual.
We've been working diligently for the last 6 weeks, since Nels introduced me to Neil, and we've gone to 3 iterations with the architects. We've already expended a fair amount of money with the architects, going back and forth and with new renderings. And now we're ready to compile a revised site plan to the city for this March rendition with a full-blown schedule to get a blessing. I mean, I don't know how we can get other engineers to work any faster.
Because I think what we were saying also is in order to be able to come up with that concept, you also have to be able to put together the soil borings with an engineer to say, okay, we can actually do this physically. So it's not as easy as just saying, okay, we can address all these because nothing's changed. The fact of the matter is, by having to raise this building so much, you're losing a lot of space. We have to still be able to address these issues and do the engineering, so we have a building that we can, that's feasible.
What I just heard Jeff say is that you've been working and redesigning this project for however long you've been doing that. We haven't seen it. Is there any way we could see something? That's what I'm saying. Like, is there, and some of the issue was in whatever form that is possible. So we haven't seen that. Just remember the old drawing. So one of the primary issues, as you've heard other issues, but one of the primary issues was the transportation layout in the back of the building. Has engaging your designers on these questions over time that we haven't had access to that information? Have you looked at that issue? Can you demonstrate that you've looked at some of the issues? I'm just suggesting this as and so again, it doesn't have to be a full-blown, beautiful, rendered site plan, but is there any way you could demonstrate the progress you've made in looking at the issues?
Neil, Jeffrey, as far as getting to them, our thoughts, how do you want to?
We have not at this point taken the new redeveloped building, the 4-story building, on the site, raised it 4 feet or 2 feet above floodplain, which is about 4 to 5 feet into the air, and determine how many spots. We know we're going to lose parking spots, but we haven't really figured out how to get from the current site into the building and have it an insurable building out of it. Because the whole building is sitting in the air and it can't be in the floodplain. That's really our next step. And that will determine the parking issues. Can we get started on that? Yes, absolutely. Can I guarantee I'll have that done in 30 days? I don't know.
And the engineering component is going to be, it's going to be the kind of the issue is from a timing standpoint. The architectural standpoint, I think we'll be fine. I think we conceptually know exactly what we want. Just trying to make it fit, ramping up into the hotel, the landscaped areas on the outside that open up to the public walkway. We just have to make it work and make all the parking, I guess, circulation work as well. So I think, yeah, I think 30 to 40 days probably, if the engineer can move as quickly as possible for us in conjunction with the architect. Something like that.
At this point in time, with the changes that you've had to make to the building design and the site plan design, are you anticipating any changes to the originally proposed public access piece?
Not at this point.
What I said to Steve a couple months ago is I don't understand what keeps you going. It's just very daunting, but I mean, again, it seems like given the new information, any new developer is gonna have the same problems and common council, if it goes to RFP, common council is gonna have to seriously rethink the criteria. And I would hope it wouldn't be 4 or 5 story buildings there. I'm really torn about what to do, I admit. In some sense, I think we should continue to respect the original agreement, given the cost of starting all over, but on the other hand, it's looking increasingly futile to continue. So I really don't know what to do. Sure.
I mean, I haven't heard anything that says, I'm not hearing any of these 3 guests indicate that they think it's futile. I think that it would be good if we do continue this, for you guys to understand in this partnership that this committee and Lisa and Nels and the planning folks need some demonstration more regularly. But I'm not seeing that I'm not seeing that the project is futile, or nobody has said that they think it's not gonna work. I maybe I misunderstood, but I haven't heard that.
Want to put together a conceptual plan that we know from an engineering and cost perspective will work. We don't want to spend money to put forth a conceptual plan because on the surface, it satisfies, you know, all of these requirements, but financially is not workable. And I don't want to spend your time or our time on proposing a plan that looks pretty, but is not financially feasible. In order to do that, we need to be able to put together an engineering and design that will work, and it will require some demands by us on what the city is, you know, going to be able to do as well, and we're in partnership to make the project work. And if, when we lay out, this is what we need to make it work, it's not something the city wants to do, fine, then we're done. But if this is what we need to do in order to respond to the RFP, to do the enhancements, and invest the money to do the environmental cleanup up front to get this project going, we need to be able to flesh out all the changes that can accommodate the flood, the floodplain elevations and all the demands. We would like that opportunity to do it, but we're not going to do a slapdash pretty picture because that doesn't help anybody. And so we would like to have the opportunity to do that. And we will lay out, this is what we need in order to make it work. And if you say, well, that's not enough access to the water, that's too much parking or whatever, if it doesn't work, fine, let us know. But at least we know we've put together a financial, and we've put together a project. This is what's required to make what the original demands were work. That's what we need. And I think that's what you need.
I'll just note, I mean, looking beyond some of there's at least two economists at the table. So I'll look beyond some of the sunk cost arguments and just say that the changes that we've seen in the floodplain, things that have impacted your development timeline and process are new information to the city as well. And I just want to, kind of acknowledge my colleagues' concern about what Common Council's disposition might be should this go back to them. I think that those new realities are something that council's presently right in the throes of grappling with citywide. And it sounds like, I hear the concern of the development team of like, if what the city wants is infeasible, at some point, whether this gets extended again and the city needs to reassess what its expectations are, or if it gets sent back and the city needs to reassess what its expectations are, that's going to have to happen one way or another. I know I'm not really offering new data points beyond just how I think this might proceed, because again, I'm personally leaning towards not voting in favor of another extension.
And what are your reasons for not favoring the extension?
I think my personal level of risk tolerance on, I hear that we're still very notionally committed to moving this project forward, but that there remain a number of unanswered questions about whether or not it actually will. And so I don't mean to like satisfy the difference of opinions here about futility and non-futility, but I do think for me, the probability of this moving forward to mutual satisfaction seems low. And I'm trying to be persuaded, but I am not yet. Yes.
I do think that a revised conceptual plan that is financially feasible would be of interest to review. It would take 60 days, it sounds like, or so to get there. It would, in a worst case scenario, it would inform the city what is feasible with this current, identification of a development program, I guess. But it would, in a worst case scenario, give us some sense of what is deemed as a financially feasible use of the site, even if it didn't meet the IURA's expectations. So I think there's value to having that submission and understanding what it is. And it, can it retain those original visions of the island? Redevelopment would be advantageous if it can meet those things. And I think that is the goal of the development team, but I don't know if it can be accomplished or not. So it would be a valuable data point, I guess, to have that submission and analyze it from the agency point of view, because it would take, in the March to get there, right, is what we're hearing. Lisa?
Well, I was just gonna say something else that might help the agency is that, having that information beforehand with a written report of the design considerations, doesn't have to be extensive, but the considerations that went into the design and how they were determined and, instead of it's difficult at a meeting to respond to something. So, as much information as you can provide into what went into the decision before the meeting, I think would be helpful, especially in the situation where you're trying to make a decision.
I think I understand, but then,
No.
okay, Tom.
I think I have a pretty good sense of what's going into the decision, the flood maps. The need to elevate the building and therefore the need to keep one story off and make it a little bit wider. I think I get that. I mean, and I don't know about the financial analysis from their point of view. I still don't understand how they're going to about it. So I think I understand those reasons, but I would need more confidence that there can be a transportation plan. And that they can move along once the pieces are in place. And that's what I don't have, and that's what I don't have confidence in.
I very rarely run the night con myself, and it is only in this case that I would say that, yes, it is, what has happened up until now is in the past. And to me, the benefits of extending 30, 40 to 60 days seems trivial in the big scope of things. And again, I don't want to speak for Carl, but we were both quite concerned about losing the option for the beacon. So for those reasons, I plan to, support moving forward.
Hat on. The motion on the table is the motion to terminate, so if there's an alternative motion from the agency member, might be appropriate at this time to make it. Check.
I move to continue keeping it on the table. Is that right?
Put it back on the table for,
I guess the March meeting. I gather that there will be some conversation with the planning office prior to the end of March. Is that correct? Is that what you guys were talking about?
That's what we would propose.
Yeah, and then whatever comes out of that or et cetera would come to us at our March meeting.
It's feasible
okay, so motion.
on our,
Motion on the table is to postpone or to table this until the March meeting of the IURA. Is there a second? Okay, motion fails. Main motion. Any further discussion? Motion to terminate, vote please, yeah.
I mean, I understand that people are irritated, but I feel like levels of irritation are not like, I feel like that it's an important for maybe both our guests, in addition to other folks, to think about what difference does 2 months make. I mean, that's all.
I mean, I guess we could pose that question to staff. What difference does 2 months make in what staff would do? in either scenario?
We're coming up on our busy schedule with the grant application process, so busy for us and busy for you. So in that regard, March, April is a busy month for the agency. But we also have the closing of the submissions is January 31st, so February is a busy time to prepare and look at those applications, so there will be, Anissa will be very busy with that. And I get engaged to it to some degree as well. So there is that issue that would take away from time to prepare for a new RFP, for example, or start that process up again. It would, making a decision now would allow us to get started on that process, now and start moving it forward. That's the difference between the two. It would restart a pretty elongated process, just like the one that got us to this point. So I think you should think of this as measuring it in probably maybe years, maybe, it's a long process from start to finish. So in that regard, 2 months has not been a long time in the history of this project to date. But it is, the longer you wait to start, the longer, the longer it takes to get to the finish. So.
So if the resolution passes and there's a need to start all over with a new RFP, when would that start?
When we had enough staff time to devote to get that RFP process restarted by bringing it to the agency and probably asking the agency or suggesting the agency bring it to the county council for review. So it would be, I guess, I can't promise it would be ready at the February meeting. I mean, the February meeting would be a goal, but we would work through the ED committee like we did before. That's coming up in 2.5 weeks, so it's not going to be ready for the February ED meeting. We'd be probably looking at the March and April time period and working our way through it and bringing the ED committee up to speed on where the issue is and some of the, major points, and having them work and try to develop what they think are feasible economic, goals for the RFP, I guess. We didn't prescribe the exact project that's here with the original RFP, but there were goals that were identified that became clear as we went through the process with the sponsor, because that negotiation of the project was refined as it went through in terms of what is the public benefit component. It was always very clear that affordable housing was an important part, but the rest of it was harder to define, as well as maintaining that water dependent use, that the last water dependent use in the city, essentially trying to retain that function on the island. So it would, we'd be looking into April probably before we got it back to the agency.
We're still undecided.
Can I invite either staff or agency members to talk a little bit about the disposition of the Economic Development Committee on this issue, because I was not in attendance at the December meeting.
Yeah, I mean, when we had discussed it at the December meeting, part of why we had to the resolution forward was because at that time, there had not been any sort of agreement made between Baywood and Finger Lakes Development Team, and so there was even more uncertainty around the feasibility of the project and about whether or not it would move forward. I don't know that those concerns have really been fully addressed. It's been several months, and that question of feasibility still seems to be lingering. And at that particular Economic Development Committee meeting, we passed the resolution with the understanding that there would be an opportunity for the Finger Lakes Development Team to come and give an update prior to us voting as a full committee. And so we sent it forward knowing that there would be an opportunity for further discussion on it. So that's sort of an unhelpful explanation of how the discussion moved forward from that group.
I think it's.
There was a relatively brief discussion at the January meeting as well, but again, the information was still being developed. It wasn't I didn't pose it as a resolution issue for the committee. It was more of an update and some opportunity for feedback with the developer, and that's kind of what happened. There was no decisions made or clear positions staked out, I don't think, although issues were reconfirmed, I guess, at that meeting.
I will share that I agree with Cheyenne that my main concern is about being able to preserve the affordable housing component of this project and worrying about whether that will remain possible if we were to move to terminate the exclusive negotiation agreement. And that piece is what is making me hesitant. Because I do think that's an important part of the project. And we've heard as well that because of delays, INHS is still several years away from being able to apply for the funding necessary for moving forward with this. So there is a degree of concern about pushing this project back and it continuing, and that pushing INHS even further away from being able to collaborate on this project. But I do share a lot of the concerns about the feasibility of the hotel component and the sort of concerns that have been raised along the process and whether or not we are able to adequately address them and whether that's really achieving what we wanted out of this particular space of land.
I just agree that it is uncertain right now, but I would rather let these guys do that work. And then, like as Nell says, if that engineers assess that actually, like given the new flood plan, it is not feasible, then we know it's not feasible. And then if we were to reissue a new RFP, it would have very different parameters. But we don't really know that right now. And so maybe that's another reason to allow more of this research to happen and come back to us. But we would hope that there are ways to in a financially feasible way to proceed. But I think the problem is there's a lot of uncertainty around it because of the delays and the communication in the past. But at this point, we don't have something that says something more clear about that level of feasibility. I would be happy to be like, okay, this isn't going to work if we see that it is not going to work. But these guys say they want to make it work and they are going to put some money into figuring out whether it's going to work. I don't know. That is when I think of the feasibility of it. I feel like I would like this engineer, whoever they are, to be able to tell us.
So either way we go, there's going to be delays and it's a multi-year project, you know, whether we go for a new RFP or whether we have a 45 to 60 day delay here. I guess what I'm trying to imagine is what, if we allow an extension, and I would say for a presentation at the ED meeting in March, what kind of information would I want then that would allow me to make a decision? And that's what I'm having a hard time imagining. Yes, so the soil, would that be because the soil test would be back and then we would know if what the engineering challenges are for both the hotel and the HS building. Would they have new financial information and we tell them that they're not gonna make any money off of it? That's what I can't imagine. Is I'm sort of okay going to the 45-day extension, but I have to imagine what information I want then to be clear about it. And that's what I need help to see.
I don't think we want to get into re-examining the soil borings or the engineering analysis. I think more along the lines of the developer saying this is a financially feasible conceptual plan is probably the right level for IRA review. I don't, I think that's really the main issue, and that would lead right into addressing the issues that have been identified by planning staff and city staff with the earlier version, which is going to be somewhat modified. But I think the developer is bringing forward, this is what we think is a financially feasible conceptual plan is probably the right level of review for the IRA.
Us and Steve, you've alluded to the fact that there will be asks from the city, on this. So as part of that, obviously, as being as explicit as you can about what those asks would be, I think would be very helpful.
Mhm. Yeah.
Say that the thing that's been most persuasive for me of any statement this entire meeting has been Nels saying that agency staff wouldn't have bandwidth to work on this until April. We started over.
I think we could start, but I don't think we would be
Sure.
able to advance it too far.
For that reason, I will move Cheyenne's motion for discussion, for debate. I will move Cheyenne's motion to extend this until to table this until the IURA meeting in March. Is there a second on that?
I want to amend your motion.
Procedurally, I need a second before it can be amended. So is there a second? Second question.
I'd like to amend it for the EDC meeting in March and then the meeting in March.
I'll ask for unanimous consent on that. Any consent?
I don't know about the calendar, is that the feasible dates? I have no conceptual disagreement, I just wondering about calendar.
I just don't understand to understand if it's tabled to the EDC meeting, who makes the decision about continuing the table or not? You normally would bring it to the full IRA for those kind of determinations. You could say that it's tabled to receive a submission of a conceptual plan by the EDC meeting in March.
That's what I took you to be saying.
Oh, wait, what did I say?
So you just to clarify, you are requesting that the agency receive an update by the Economic Development Committee's meeting, not to refer this back to their committee, correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
And so unanimous consent on that, and then any dissent? Okay. Any discussion on that motion? So
I'm not understanding.
we're about to vote on whether or not we're going to table this resolution to terminate until March, contingent on receiving the conceptual plan that Nell's just outlined by
Second Tuesday of the month.
March 11.
Sounds right.
Wow, that was incredible. Yes.
So the agency needs to, if this passes, the agency needs to receive an update with this conceptual plan by March 11th. So before we turn that to a vote, is that possible?
Both my parties just laughed. Jeffrey, can we get the conceptual plan with what we need to make this thing work? To Nels by March 11th? Jeffrey?
I'm listening, and I don't want to make promises I can't keep. Neil, is he still on or?
I don't know where he went. It looks like he may have. He left, he had to exit, I guess.
Yeah, we got frozen. We're frozen. I don't know who cares, but it's true. Um.
It is what would our meeting be, the 28th?
Yes.
Is the 28th something that you could commit
Yeah,
to?
I would say we could do it in the, in March. I don't know about the 11th. I mean, I just don't,
And realistically.
gotta
for
get,
the-
we've got to get people to actually put this on paper.
Realistically, for the EDC to be able to absorb it, they would need it prior to the meeting itself. So it would need to be 4 days before, the Thursday or Friday before the 11th. Otherwise, it doesn't really have any the committee doesn't have any opportunity to review it.
By that same token, though, I don't think the
Agency,
agency meeting
yeah.
in March would be a good date either.
You mean the 28th?
I'm losing everybody here. All of a sudden, people are dropping out,
Can you hear us?
and faces are frozen. I'm gonna jump off and reboot.
What I was saying was, the 28th, just to Nels's exact point, like, if we're gonna get a conceptual plan, we should be able to like see it for a few days before.
Right,
That's all.
correct. But like Tuesday, the 11th would require getting it like by Thursday, the 6th or Wednesday, the 5th. But in order for us to look at it on Friday, the 28th,
Right.
Monday, the 24th doesn't seem like.
Oh, I misunderstood what you said then, yes.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yes.
Steve, do you think that's, that's like a 2 months from right now?
I would hope that we can do that. And if not, then we're gonna have to have an explanation as to why not. So. If my partner said, if my partners say differently, then we'll let you know.
So I have a question, I'm sorry, this parliamentary. In the process of doing that, is there any conversation that would naturally happen, just informally with Nelson and Lisa?
I would hope so.
Yes.
So then you could provide a verbal update to, the Economic Development Committee perhaps,
Yes.
With that,
given the things done on.
So the motion on the table is unchanged, which is that this would be tabled till, the resolution would be tabled until the March meeting. I think substantively, the agency is clearly communicating that they need this about 5 business days before said meeting.
Now, meetings on the 28th, you said?
That's right.
Right. Think about the Monday before. Before that.
So, is Neil on or did he jump off?
No, I think you jumped off. I'm not quite sure.
We're still frozen. He dropped off. It's that few minutes.
But why don't we close the screen?
Just,
It's
class. All right, any further discussion before I call for a vote? Shalom.
Just to reiterate, like, we've now tabled this twice with the understanding that we would make a decision once we have further updates. And wanting to be very clear that, like, we don't want to continue just tabling the resolution of whether we're going to terminate this agreement. Like, we really need a substantive update and we need to receive the plan and we need to be able to make a decision at the March meeting. It does not make sense to continue to just push this down the road. And so really not wanting an explanation of why we aren't able to deliver it, but wanting to actually look at the plan.
We said in January that we needed, 45, and I think I actually asked for 60 days, go with 45, and you gave us 30, and we still need a little more time. So I appreciate the need for information and the desire to keep things pushing forward. And we do too, because, to Donna's point, actually, my greatest concern is you can put something together that's financially feasible, but then you're gonna turn around and say, nah, we don't want to do it. So, that's, I don't want to extend it any more, but I also am not gonna put together a plan that we don't have confidence in to work. And that takes time to get engineers and stuff, and they just don't respond that quickly. And I think we've made a lot of progress over the holidays and today.
Motion on the table, is postpone until the March agency meeting. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion carries 3-1. Thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you.
Anything on the report?
From the economic development thing. Sure. We had reviewed this in list, the Green Star, and the Ithaca Coffee Company proposals, all of which we discussed and voted on, and that was the substance of our meeting.
Turn it over to Donna, governance items.
Okay, governance committee met a week ago, today in the morning, and it was, we went over several annual formalities, renewed contracts for community development consulting and for 2 attorneys who work on a part-time consulting basis for the IURA. And so we'll be voting on those. That is, the first one is Harrison Studio. That's on page 48 of our packet. And they provide loan underwriting assistance to the IURA, and their rate is $185 an hour for one of the partners and $150 an hour for loan underwriting. And that's a slight increase from the current year. So I move that resolution.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion on this? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carries 4-0. You want to move next to as a batch?
Yes. So the next 2 are for the continued services of Maria Geldenhuis and Sharon Solomowitz. They provide legal advice to the IURA on a very part-time basis. And Goldenhuis provide rates, her maximum billing rate is $250 an hour, which is a 2% increase in the current contract. I believe that Solomowitz does not have an increase in her rate. Nels pointed out at the meeting that we typically had a 3rd part-time attorney, but she withdrew a proposal because the cost of her insurance is greater than what she gets from us, and that made total sense. So anyway, I move these 2 for Geldenhuis and Solomowitz Legal Services.
Is there a second? Second by Sean. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carries 4-0. Donna, any committee report?
Yes, we were sad to learn that a longtime member David Whitmore will be resigning from the committee because he's going to have expanded obligations in his new day job. And so there'll be a vacancy on, at least one vacancy on the governance committee, which means once a quarter. It's not a huge workload. It's great to have somebody who has some kind of legal or accounting or real estate experience. So if you know people, send them to the mayor.
Thank you very much. Siobhan, I'm sorry, Cheyenne, yeah, we're now confused you both, so we're even. Neighborhood Investment Committee, you have 2 items for us?
Yes, so the first one, and you can fill in if I miss anything, but basically, INHS has this amazing, program where they bought, they, with our support, they, help households, low-income households do major rehab on their homes that they otherwise would not be able to do and might result in them not being able to stay in their home. And they have a 2022 IURA contract for this. They have been having trouble. Basically, they have 3 projects completed and there are 2 more that are out to bid. But as it states in the memo, they have difficulty basically meeting the requirement to get 3 bids necessary. And then they always have to choose the cheapest one, which they were keen to indicate that they were not choosing contractors that were subpar in any way, but just very, very busy and in some ways kind of slow. So they just have not been able to operationalize and finish all of the projects. So they asked for a 120-day extension, and this is what I need Anissa for. We actually decided to ask them if that was even enough, and could we just extend it to the end of 2025? And that is what we had decided.
So in their request letter, they indicated that actually they would need at least 240 days. The staff level, Nels is authorized to extend a project 120 days, and any extension over 120 days, the IRA has to consider. So Nels did give them the 120-day extension
Oh,
through
yes,
April,
Yeah,
but since their letter indicated they needed more time, then the committee asked a variety of questions, whether or not, so if it was extended 240 days, that would take them to, I think, August 28th, which is still construction season. Normally, there's still plenty of opportunity to do construction during that time. That was discussed, so a variety of other dates were discussed, and for ease of kind of just administrative ease for IURA and also for INHS, there was a proposal to extend it to December 31st of 2025, which is exactly a year extension. So that's what the committee ultimately decided to adopt, recommend.
Thank you.
that was our motion. If there, anybody want to make a with that? Second. Any discussion? All in favor? And then the last thing that we spent time talking about was the format for the public hearing. It got sent back to us after a brief conversation here. Normally, there's a 12-minute total presentation and Q&A. But there is concern that we in fact don't end up having enough time for the Qs and the As. So we wanted to structure it a little bit differently so that they would be kind of guaranteed an opportunity for that time. And I think our proposal is for 8 minutes and of presentation and guaranteed 4 minutes of questions and answers. We also discussed that because Carl in particular, as our chair, is meticulous about collecting questions ahead of time and sharing those questions with them ahead of time so that they could integrate that into their presentation, therefore making the 4 minutes even more valuable for any additional questions or clarifications. So our proposal to this group is for the 8 and 4 breakdown, and presumably, I think the same could be done for the Economic Development Committee in terms of forwarding questions. If you have, so the proposal is that 8 and 4 though. Any questions? I guess somebody has to move it across. the
I
top.
think that's just an internal decision, so if there's no objection, we'll just structure it that way. We don't need to resolve, I don't think, for an interim.
Does anybody have any questions about it though? It could have been a variety of other options, 6 and 6, or the whole thing could have been Q&A, but we thought that having the presentation piece was important, because a lot of times what comes out in the presentation is a little more full and you get more of the energy behind the project, et cetera.
I'd say I'm supportive. I just, I think I'll keep an eye toward the utility of the presentations this cycle, because I think in general, I'd like to skew toward a shorter presentation, time and more time for questions. Having reviewed the application in advance, but this sounds good for purposes. Okay, perfect. Any committee report beyond that?
No, that's all.
So then other business, our grant summary?
Should have the grant summary in your packet. There's really no changes from the last report. Projects are moving well, with the exception of the homeowner rehab, which we know has taken longer than anticipated. And I did neglect to put in the loan and the lease repayment reports in here, so I just want to verbally tell you that all of our loans are current with one exception. Diane's Downtown Automotive is 2 months late, so we're communicating with them on that. It's been a long time since they've been late on their payments. That's a good thing. And in terms of the lease repayment report, everybody is current, and I wanted again reaffirm that the RIBS project, that lease is terminating at the end of January. They have found a new home, as I understand it, at the Finger Lakes Recycling Center site, the kind of the former gas station building at the closer to Plain Street is where they're going to be located. It's still a Southside Community Center project. They're just co-locating at that site, as I understand it. So that's the plan going forward.
That's the reuse center, not the recycling center.
Oh, did I say recycling? Sorry, yes, Finger Lakes reuse. So that happy to answer any questions you have on the grant summary, or send them to Anissa. Great question.
I just have a quick question about the St. John's Overland project. And the grant summary document, it says no, but then in the columns, it looks like yes.
So, they have been reimbursed fully for the construction work that they did. However, they haven't reached their goal of serving 14 people on the project. They've served 4, so we would like to leave that project open and not close it in IDIS until they reach their goal, or at least are substantially closer to their goal.
Right, thank you.
In the interest of time, I don't think I have any substantive reports this month, Walter's month.
A couple of quick IDA TCDC things, so that's why I'm talking some about this, so the idea is pretty enthusiastic about providing this pilot. There's a public hearing on Thursday, January 30th, from 1 to 2 at IURA offices about this pilot. But the board seems pretty enthusiastic about it. And then TCDC, the Thomas County Development Corporation, gave $125,000 to the farmers market to support their parking lot renovation, which they are still fundraising for. It costs like everything is higher than anticipated, so it needs some way for still.
We want to make the general point that it would be good if people started making more correct estimates for how much things cost. Not just that, I have no idea when that proposal was put out and approved. I mean, prices are now kind of stabilizing.
And staff report.
Really quick, I just want to let you know that the shared kitchen Ithaca project has made some progress in milestones. That's a project that has received funding from the agency, both for the feasibility analysis and to reduce the costs of low mod micro enterprises that are going to use the facility, but they've accessed some funding from not the idea of the TCDC board, because they were able to fundraise privately $200,000. They could access something around $150,000 for equipment purchases. Then they were just recently awarded an Appalachian Regional Commission funding for an additional $107,000 or $9,000 for further equipment. So they plan to open up to the public in the spring. And it seems like they're really well positioned to be successful, and they have continued to stay in contact with a number of those micro enterprises that have indicated they intend to use the facility. So progress there. I think that was the only thing I had to give it.
Yeah, I have two things. One is actually a question. Those of you who've sat around this table for many years know that you have the option of a hard copy of all the applications that come in for the 2025 action plan. Charles will digitize them all, and they will all be online as well. So if you would like that hard copy, please let me know, because I'll be doing copying as soon as we get that in. The other thing I just wanted to report is I've had some great preliminary conversations with Reach regarding the home ARP contract that we discussed. We went through all of the bullet points of the resolution that was adopted, the specific negotiation points that NI and this board wanted them to pay attention to, including addressing the disparities that are outlined in the home ARP allocation plan, being available to proceed with the project with dedicated staffing for the entire time, the project, for the entire duration, project not dropping out early. Developing, thinking about a step down strategy when the home ARP funds dwindle, how to continue to support folks who have been supportive of the project, and an outreach plan to ensure further, that people in the QPs, especially the prioritized QPs, qualifying populations, know about this opportunity and can also access it, not just, one site, for example. So we discussed them all. They met all of the, they had already been thinking about and had been strategizing ways to do these things. Of course, they can't necessarily guarantee a step down strategy until more is known about the 1115 waiver, whether that Medicaid waiver, whether that will be continued in 2.5 years and things like that. But Samantha Stevenson did indicate that this is really top of mind for her in terms of, they have an internal desire to never kind of leave any of their clients hanging. So that what she said is she'll be like, that will be a continual priority for her. So and also we set a stakeholder meeting to be able to discuss issues specifically relating to QP4, small stakeholder meeting with member COC and 211 staff, and we concluded that as well.
Any comments, questions to the agency? No? All right, well then in that case, our next meeting is February 28th. I entertain a motion to adjourn. By Donna, second by Cheyenne. All in favor? You're adjourned. Thank you.
At least we mentioned.